and happy Financial Literacy Month to you. Thank you so much for joining us for this month's Commitment to Change conversation centered around financial literacy. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to our esteemed list of panelists who will give us a wonderful review of the current situations regarding financial education. They are incredible contributors and strategies inside and outside the credit union industry. I'd love to begin with Andy Manthai, who is Business Development Specialist with Green Path Financial Wellness. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, everyone.
We also have Enrique Delgadillo. He is the President and CEO of Balance.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, everyone. Thank you.
I'd now like to welcome Michelle Bonner, who is the Senior Manager of Financial Inclusion and Impact at the National Credit Union Foundation. Hello, Michelle. And last but certainly not least, Angel McEachin. She is the Director for the Division of Consumer Affairs, Office of Consumer Financial Protection at National Credit Union Administration. Hello, Angel.
Hello, good to be with you.
All right, let's start our discussion. And I've got a wonderful question that I think will probably be on the top of minds for all that are a part of the call. With the recent items happening in the world today, how can financial institutions build trust amongst their members, particularly the underserved and the underbanked? I'd love to invite Enrique to answer that question first.
Thank you, Kelly. First, let me start off by thanking you and the African American Credit Union Coalition. This is a very, very important topic, and I'm honored to be amongst all the distinguished panelists. You know, that's we tend to overuse a lot of words, but what I'm constantly reminded of is trust is how you're going to get the credit unions. Have to build that trust. They have that trust. They need to be able to continue that trust within the communities of color. That's important. And you get there by having empathy. Empathy is something that really for me has been key. And it's a word we use all of the time, but it's a question of, do people really understand what that means? Do they really understand what it is to be empathetic, to be able to meet someone where they are? You need to be able to be transparent. And like I said, these are words that we throw around all of the time, but you find that a lot of the times it's the absence of empathy that creates a lot of the situations that we're in. So for me, I had a very traumatic situation happen to me last year, and empathy became really the highlight. It has really forced me to really focus on how people treated me. When I reached out to them, I was more in tune than I ever have been before. And I think those are the big ones. I know, again, I will continue to say they're overused, but I think it's important for people to truly understand what it means to be transparent, how that builds into being trusted, and then lastly, how you employ empathy in your everyday encounters.
Absolutely. Thank you, Enrique. And that emotional intelligence means everything, right? It can do so much. Angel, please, your thoughts.
Sure. Well, I agree with everything Enrique was saying. And just to add on to or build onto the conversation, the FDIC in their survey of unbanked and underbanked households, it was cited that the reason for not having a savings or checking account were an inability to meet minimum balance requirements and distrust of financial institutions. In fact, 33% of unbanked households cited distrust as a reason for being unbanked. So communities of color, particularly African Americans, have many reasons to distrust financial institutions. In some cases, the concern stems from racist practices in the financial system, such as redlining, or from past bank failures. In others, it arose from a lack of transparency about fees or a feeling that financial institutions want only certain kinds of customers, mainly those who are affluent or white. And there's probably no simple or easy solution to that one can implement overnight to build trust in financial institutions. However, having a presence in these communities, not necessarily a physical branch, but just being present in the community and generating products and services that are fair, equitable, and meet the unique needs of the community is a good place to start. And then how do we get there? How do we do that? By actively seeking out the input of the community and making them partners as you develop services and products. When institutions allow the people that they serve to participate in the discussion in these conversations, I think that financial institutions are better equipped to solve problems and provide resources that their members need. A credit union president in Texas that we recently spoke to shared that his community was dependent on cars because public transportation was limited in their rural area. And so many of the members depended on high interest car loans that they really couldn't afford. And this credit union developed a program with lower interest rates as a better alternative for its members in the community. And that's the kind of listening, or as Enrique was talking about, empathy and action that these communities want and need to see in order to build trusted relationships with financial institutions.
I love that, Angel. I wrote down, I've got chills. I wrote down listening and empathy plus action, right? It has to include all of those. Thank you for that. Andy, your remarks to that first question.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, and thanks AACUC for bringing us into this conversation. It's so powerful and it's so impactful. Recently we've been working with an organization and it came across through some deep research this quote around trust, and it's: trust isn't assumed or derived from authority. Rather, it's passed between people with shared experiences who have no known incentive to benefit from misleading each other. And when I think about some of the work that we've done in Detroit with our Detroit Voices, when Amari Hall, our diversity strategy designer, went into the community, it was showing up authentically and in a genuine way, where what we see sometimes, not all, but sometimes a credit union or branch will transplant and put themselves into a certain neighborhood, and it'll have none of the markings of that neighborhood, none of the cultural significance. And so what we lose sometimes is that connection to the culture, the people around. They want you to show up not for a photo opportunity, but they want you to be a part of the things that matter to them. And so that's why we've taken an approach with in Detroit with this Durfee Innovation Society. It's an incredible location that was a former middle school, and we have joined Michigan Works, Boys and Girls Club. We've joined several other community organizations to show up so that we can be there in different ways. We've held focus groups there. We've come alongside the people. I was often thinking the empathy and action. A lot of times we think of how do we respond to people, and it's like the things that we might say. And sometimes that could be hard and painful. I know when my parents passed away, I would have people say, well, things happen for a reason, or I know how you feel. And I'm like, no, you really don't know how I feel. But the things that mattered most were when somebody came alongside me, put their arm around me, and stood there with me arm in arm. And what we find in a lot of the communities and the research that we've been doing is the more that we can connect on a very deep personal level, showing up authentically, like not showing up to get something from them, to get a product, to get a relationship, that we are there to help them, then I think that's where we're going to have such a deep, profound impact on the communities we're trying to serve.
Thank you, Andy. And I am so sorry for your loss. I think oftentimes what binds us, what develops that relationship and that trust is being in that constant conversation, even when those conversations don't make us feel all the way comfortable, right? We inch closer and closer to that, to really show true purpose and align for exactly what needs to be done for our communities in service to them. So thank you so much for your answers to that first question. So moving on into the next, and this is a good segue into that. You all spend a lot of time advising credit unions, right? And showing up for us as advocates, as regulators, but also resources. And so from your point of view and from your perspective, what are the ways that we as credit union professionals can prevent our employees from leaning into this one size fits all mindset and approach to financial education? I would love to start with Angel.
Okay. I think financial institutions must remember that every consumer is different. Coming to you with a different level of financial knowledge, they have various challenges and personal goals. And while some members are savvy and comfortable with independently managing their finances, others may just be starting out or knowledgeable about the basics, but completely unfamiliar with topics like mortgages or retirement planning. And this is why the one size fits all approach to financial education just doesn't work. Consumers and their needs are diverse, and so our financial education offerings must be too. Credit unions and their staff can steer clear of the one size fits all approach to financial education by doing outreach in the communities they serve to see the diversity of need and knowledge amongst community members. Through offering classes and driving surveys, credit unions can get a stronger understanding of the people they serve and how the credit unions can help them meet their financial education needs and ultimately their financial goals. And also something to think about is that credit union members and consumers, they have different styles of learning. And so you'll often see, for instance, younger consumers and credit union members, it may resonate more with them to have short videos or just sound bites to introduce financial topics to them. Others, there's been some studies on this, women in particular like to, it resonates with them more to be in small workshops with groups of their peers where they can feel comfortable and have more context for some of the financial literacy discussions. And so, a one size fits all approach it really doesn't work. And you have to think about the individual and their needs and what's going to work best for them.
Thank you. I love that. Andy, what comes to mind for you? I know you're thinking all through the resources, right? Please help us with this one.
So, from my perspective, the thing that I see is impact stories, and I see connection through experiential learning. So whether it is facilitating a discussion in a community center, as opposed to stand and deliver at the front of the class, with a PowerPoint that's very well done, and that's great. But if we can actually tap into the vulnerability of what people are experiencing and what they're going through and identifying those unique challenges, I think that can be incredibly powerful. I know some of the things that we recently did, we did a 5-day design sprint around Spanish strategy. So how do we connect with Spanish speakers? And one of the things that we found is there was not a whole lot of connection through a laptop. There were technological gaps, there were physical barriers. And so what we're working on are testing these different interventions on a light level to how do we then interact and get people connected through that. We've done some similar types of things around our learning labs. So what's really interesting, I pulled the data and we've got 54% of the people that go through our courses identify as BIPOC, 28% identify as Black. When we think relationship of proportionality to population, that's significant. That's double the population proportions. And on top of that, we're starting to actually find out with gender nonconforming, trans, people that are sharing that with us. Some of the other things that we're looking at too is not so much the old pre and post test, like what did you know before and what do you know after? Because we know a lot of people would forget. And we've seen those studies in the past where The behavior change has been somewhat limited. So we started focusing on stress levels, confidence levels. How much more confident do you now feel? How much more, prepared are you to be able to meet this challenge? Has your stress level gone down? Is that connecting in a different way as well? And so as we start to think through that, I would also potentially look at, we know that there are financial deserts. We know that there are no branches in certain areas. We know that, your zip code can determine your life expectancy. And so when we think about some of those different aspects, instead of just coming at it from a big strategic thing saying, we're going to come and plop ourselves down in, let's actually have some conversations first. Let's find out what's going on. Let's connect on a human level. Let's come alongside. And one of the things we found through Detroit Voices where people said, we want to help co-create these solutions. We don't want smart people in a boardroom at the credit union telling us what they think that we need. We want to tell them about what's happening, our issues with the kinds of debt we're struggling with and all of those things. And then when we're able to come back from that, we can actually work alongside and say, yes, this meets my need and the important things there. So I think the more that we can tap into the human experience with our staff and we don't see it as just another number, the next member, I talk to 8 members a day or whatever. It's no, I talked to Angel, I talked to Kelly. Who are they? What are their stories? And then I think we can build on it from there.
Thank you so much. I wrote down your zip code can determine your life expectancy. Can we just sit with that for a moment, right? This is not only what our members are going through, it's what their families are going through, what our communities are going through. So making sure that we take an adequate temperature gauge on that situation and showing up for them authentically. It's not performative, right? And in order to do that, I love your ideas, and Angel, those resources that you're offering, those ideas that you all offer. Thank you so much for that. I'd love to go to Enrique for the same question.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree with what's been said. And I think Andy brings up an excellent point, because you could actually explore that a little further. When you talk about the zip codes, you could actually overlay FICO scores, and you could see very quickly where there were issues and where the issues were even when COVID hit. You could look at where the higher concentrated cases of COVID, you could match that up to the FICO score. I mean, it's there, right? There's this notion about financial wellness. There's this interpretation that certain communities aren't wanting the same things. We all want that. We all want safe banking. We all want to work on retirement. We all would love, this should not be an exclusive club. And the reality is that we are all on this financial wellness path, but it depends where you are on that path. Because certainly what was important for me when I was 20 is vastly different than when I'm 30 and vastly different when I'm 40. But our diverse backgrounds is the very reason why there is no one size fits all. You can't, because we're all individually unique. And what happens a lot of the times is we fall into this thing about wanting to find someone that's bilingual. And that's great. But what you need to find is bicultural. You need to be able to understand it's not just being bilingual, it's being bicultural. Are you speaking the same language, and are you understanding the same path that someone is going through? You need to be able to speak to me, and don't put me in the same learning pattern and the same approach as everyone else, because it's not going to work. So the one size fits all, throw that out the window. You better be able to understand, one, what is triggering that person to come and see you? It may be one thing that they called you about, but there's a whole host of things that are happening that you need to be able to look at the whole person to be able to understand why is it that they reached out to you? And more often than not, I'm here to tell you, it's not like we walk around and saying, hey, I think I'm going to have trouble paying my rent this month, or hey, I think I'm having problems with my car, or the fact that I was late with my credit union, my credit card payment. There were other aspects that led to that. So we need to be able to understand not what just triggered the action, but what else is happening? What are the needs? And we need to stop falling into that trap of falling into being able to talk about acronyms like everybody is understanding where we're coming from. You can't just be using terms that everybody's like, well, everybody should understand what the FICO score means. And you should be able to, no, it doesn't work that way. So we need to kind of take a step back, understand where people are coming from, where they are, why they came to see you, and what is their goal. So when I hear that question, one size fits all, it just reminds me again that, hey, I'm tired of being invisible. I'm here. You need to be able to take a look and understand what's important for me, how I'm going to learn. And from a very young age, I had this attitude when I just started telling people, don't tell me no, tell me how, because that's what's going to get me to where I need to be.
Enrique, well, first off, I hope everyone is writing down these gems, right? The gems that are being dropped. I hope you are getting saturated with this word right now. Thank you so much for that, Enrique. Michelle, welcome. I want to welcome you into the conversation as well. I know we had some technology impediments, but please tell us, when you think about that question, number 2, tell us what comes to your mind.
Sure. So exactly. Well, hello, everyone. Sorry that I'm tardy for the party, but we're here. And exactly what Enrique said. Honestly, you look at just the Zoom room alone. No one looks the same. No one learns the same. I've been very blessed to be able to teach folks from 2 years old to their great grandparents, I say, and no one learns the same. So if you're going kind of in your classrooms or out in your community with the same content, I would challenge you maybe to go back into your own offices and look around and say, does this resonate with you? Test it with other departments if you have to do that internally sometimes. Actually just giving you just kind of real resources and tips to revise that, keep that fresh, use local examples, because this is where your membership lives. This is who they are. And maybe they have emotional challenges with how they deal with money or how they manage money. Consider that as well. Every conversation that you're going to have with folks, whether it's a full classroom or a one-on-one, is going to be different. Everyone along with these backgrounds, I would say, implementing DEI trainings into your offices, because just not even the language alone, but understanding those diverse backgrounds is going to be so helpful and crucial. Utilizing those tools to engage with the folks in your community, do that 100%. And I would also say to look back at the records of perhaps where you've been hosting these classes, who have been hosting these classes, what does that content look like? Are you really reaching the folks that your membership looks like? Are you going beyond? Are you expanding that? Or are you doing what you know works? Let's stop ticking boxes and let's actually get into the groove.
I love that, Michelle. Stop
Amen.
checking boxes. Get into the groove. Absolutely. Michelle has entered the chat. Love that. Thank
With
you.
authority.
Thank you. Right. Yes. So as we think about this, graduating from our thought of a one size fits all, we're also thinking about making sure that the younger generations too, they're understanding and they're taking stock of these examples, but also, we also discuss experiential learning, right? Like AACUC for years has been doing the reality fair in conjunction with their conference, right? And so it's amazing to see this light bulb get screwed in when a student is like, oh my gosh, kids are expensive. Or, oh my gosh, I don't think I want that job. I think I want this job, which means I need to stay in school a little longer, right? And so having those aha moments, I think a lot of us on this call who have either volunteered with AACUC's reality fairs or done models of our own at our own credit union, right? We're always looking and searching for those moments where we can season a nugget, right? A nugget of education onto that young mind that is really just going to transcend the classroom and take it to the next level. So I'd love to know, and I'm going to start with Michelle this time.
Sure.
What's a financial literacy nugget that you have grown to apply in your own life and career that you think every young person should know?
Sure. I would say this is young or old because we never stop learning. And that is a quote from Benjamin Franklin. I would put this in every one of my education sessions. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. That will prove correct time and time again. Every day is an opportunity to learn, but think about when it comes to financial literacy, giving people the tools and the resources to not only understand what they're talking about, but how to use these things properly. I mean, you can drive whether it's a plane or a car, you can keep going forward, but if you don't know how to read the signs, if you don't know how to apply that to where you're going, will we ever make it there? So understanding that who you have with you is also part of that knowledge and learning. So investing in yourself to learn something new every day.
That's wonderful. Now, that quote from Ben Franklin, tell us that again so we can
Sure.
write the note. Yes.
Sure. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest.
I love that. Thank you. Andy.
So I have a strategic and a tactical. My strategic is hope and grace, because so many folks that come to us have lost hope in the systems. They've lost hope in their ability to purchase a home and any of those things. And grace, when things get messed up, it's okay. You're not alone. Stuff happens to people all the time. So hope and grace, always give yourself a little bit of grace. Jump back on the horse, figure that piece out. And the tactical is automation. I once did a job fair for an employee partner, and I asked, what advice would you give 18-year-old you? And some were probably not suitable for work, but the others were actually, I wish I'd saved more. And so the automation, if you can automate your savings, if you can automate your bill pay, making sure your bills are paid on time, all of those things take the guesswork out. The behavioral science piece is going to reap benefits long-term overall.
It's wonderful. Enrique.
Thank you. Yeah, very, very good points. At first I was thinking when I saw that question, I was thinking, well, let's define young, okay? Because I'm going to be 59 in a couple of months, and I still think I'm young. So, and when I thought about it, I was thinking, oh my goodness, there's a thing that I constantly say to my kids, and I say to anybody within earshot, because you're going to be in different financial positions as you move along your financial path and as you're going through the years. But I've always lived by this adage of just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it's a redesign, if you will, of living within your means. Just take stock of what you have. You need to figure out how to do the spending plan. You need to develop the habits, because I think Andy brought up an excellent point. If you could build early on your savings and learn to make that habit and make it a habit, and understanding, again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. But as I thought about this question, I was thinking, as much as I want to say to somebody that's young, if I could say to me when I was 20, I want to be able to tell my 20-year-old self, hey, do not waste your time, because whether you're ready or not, if you're lucky, you're going to be 59 one day. And when you're 59, there's a thing you don't want to talk about at 20, retirement. That's going to happen. You need to start thinking about that. But let me tell you, for everything that I had in place, and I talked about this at GAC, I threw everything out the window. Everything went out the window for me when my wife passed away last year from cancer. I wasn't prepared for that. For everything that I was prepared for, I was not prepared for that unexpected life-altering event. And that's what I would say to anybody within earshot. So wherever you are, if you have a house, if you have kids, if you have any assets, now within earshot, I'm constantly telling people, do you have a will? Talk to an attorney. I'm not going to get into the living trust or the will, but you better think about that. Who's going to care for your kids? What are the PODs? Do you even understand what a POD is at your financial institution? These are all terms that I wasn't aware of. And as you're going through the emotional toll, there's the financial aspect of losing someone, and you're having to go through. And when I talk about empathy, that's where it's magnified. So when I'm walking into these financial institutions and people don't understand, it's not like I was wearing a shirt or I could walk in with a sign saying, please be kind to me, my wife just passed away. I was trying to understand, how do I close these accounts? What do you mean I don't have access to this money? Do you need my death certificate? So I went back to my team and I challenged my team and I said, look, for all of the hosts of classes that we have, for all of the workshops that we teach, I went through everything. We talk about life after bankruptcy. We talk about life after divorce. We talk about how to recover from a financial disaster. We talk about what you do when you lose a job, but we don't have anything when you lose a loved one. So I got my team to work on that, and I'm proud to say that we finally have a presentation, and it may not be a topic that people want to talk about, but let me tell you, these are life-altering events that if you're not ready for, and it may not necessarily help you as you go through it, but I'm here to tell you, if I just had a checklist of what I needed to do to help me along while I was dealing with the emotional toll of this, it would have worked wonders. And that's what I would say to my 20-year-old self. Hey, get ready and prepare yourself for life. And these are the things you should think about. But be ready and be prepared, because life is going to throw some curveballs at you. And I think we've seen that in the last 3-4 years. And thank you for allowing me to share that with everyone.
Absolutely. Enrique, I am so sorry for your loss. And thank you so much for sharing your transparency, your vulnerability with us. It means the world. And the gems that you all are dropping right now, it's going to change somebody's life. Okay, so
I
thank you
appreciate
so
that.
much. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
that. Angel, share your nugget with us.
I have a very practical nugget. It's along the lines of automating savings. I really loved hearing that. That helped me when I got out of college and got my first job. It was a way for, I had a lot of student loan debt and some credit card debt, and learning to automate my savings really helped me personally. And so my nugget has to do with savings, especially if we're talking to you. And so it's saving is less about the money you save and more about building the habit of putting that money away. Too many people think that if they don't make enough money to save, that they don't make enough money to save, or that if their savings balance isn't big, that it doesn't matter. And this simply isn't true. You know, most people don't have an emergency fund. And so if there was an emergency where, you know, they had to spend $400, they may not have that money set aside for that emergency car repair or whatever the situation may be. And so while it's nice to have thousands of dollars in the bank, you can never get there if you don't start with that first $50 in the account. But even to get that 50, you have to start. And what's important is to start savings and to stick to a savings habit. And when you learn to save even a little bit, you build the habit of not spending everything that you've got. And slowly you'll see your earnings and your money grow over time. And so that's my practical tip. I just think it's really important that young people start saving and building that habit early to help them grow their financial capability. One other thing I think young people aren't necessarily thinking about, and it has to do with credit and building and maintaining credit. You know, nowadays, a lot of employers, especially for like college students or maybe high school students looking to get that first job, a lot of employers now are using, as part of their background checks, are looking at people's their credit. And so it's really important that we not only young folks are not only thinking about building credit, but maintaining credit, making sure they're paying their bills on time, not over leveraging themselves. And so that when an employer or prospective employer is looking at their credit report, it's not detrimentally impacting their job opportunities. So I think that's something that they're not necessarily thinking about right away, but it's also equally important.
It's wonderful. You know, oftentimes with these type of conversations, we're sharing resources, we're building that professional acronym for making sure that we are making the right case for finances, right? And this is all about financial awareness. So, you know, a lot of times we will say things like, well, I don't know what else to say to the young folks that I haven't already said, or I don't know how to polish up that presentation. You all on this call, I mean, my goodness, you now have 4 different pillars to be able to build upon the content that you already have at your credit union, right? They have dropped gems that could even be presentations on their own, right? So you have that now in your toolkit, and sky's the limit. for this group and beyond, in the many ways that you elevate finances and the many ways that you elevate in members' lives. So we are so thankful. You know, we've got another question, but as I'm formulating this question, as we're hearing from the group, I would love for you to share your questions with us. Those of you that are on the call, make sure you enter in those questions, and if there is time, we will get to those. So we definitely want to open up the chat now for questions as well. But here's the next one for the panelists. So if you all had to assign a grade, and let's say that grade is A through F, right? We're taking it back to grade school. If you had to assign a grade, A through F, to how well or not so well the credit union industry is doing to financially educate members and the community, what would your grade be and why? Okay. I am going to start with Enrique.
Wow, no pressure. Well, here we go. At the risk of not being invited again, let's get uncomfortable.
Yes, please.
So here's the thing. Credit unions, I love you. We've been working with credit unions for years, and I love your commitment, people helping people, where your heart is at, and everything that is being done for financially educating their members. I would say I have 2 grades. I'm going to give the credit union industry an A for effort. Fantastic job. Now let's put that aside and let's have real talk. If you look at all of us, anyone that's in the financial wellness space, there are more families that need help than we have practitioners. That's the reality. We don't have enough of us out there preaching what needs to be preached. So when you look at the studies that the Financial Health Network has done, they put out a health report in the last 5 years. This is the first time that the score has gone down. Close to 70% of people are reporting in the survey that they're feeling vulnerable about their financial position and they're barely coping. That's the real view of where we are. So if we only have 30% that are feeling financially healthy, we can't really pat ourselves in the back. There's too much work to be done. I would have to give us a C. So that's great. I would give us an A because we have the intention. We want to do this. We want to make an impact, but the results are not coming through. So how do we collectively, how do we collaboratively, how do we invert those numbers? Let's get to a point to where we can go back and say 70% of people are feeling financially healthy. And you magnify that in the communities of color. I constantly feel like every time we take a step forward, we end up taking a step back when things happen, when inflation hits us, when the pandemic hit us. And it's not, and the statistics are there. The Financial Health Network put it out that the African-American community actually decreased by 6 points on their financial health score. So once again, here we go, going in the wrong direction. We're going backwards. So it's a little hard, and the tenets of that survey revolves around spend, save, borrow, and plan. So it's a very, very good survey. And when you look at, they started this in 2018, it was shocking to me to see that the score actually has gone up every year. In fact, it even went up after the pandemic. I don't even know how in the world people felt financially healthy after the pandemic, but yet for the first time in 5 years, for the first time since this survey has been done, the score's gone down. So we're going in the wrong direction. So again, what are we going to do? And are we going to have real talk? Are we really going to make an impact? I talk about this every single time I get invited. And again, at the risk of not being invited again, my thing is, what are we doing beyond this webinar? What are we doing beyond this presentation? What are we doing beyond the conferences? When are we going to come together? If we already understand and we know the methods on how to help families and how to improve their financial health, then why aren't we coming together and taking that to scale? We understand the model. We know what works. Let's get together and start implementing this so we can actually start making a difference, making an impact looking at true outcomes, and being able to say, yes, we move the needle in the right direction. I would love to get to a point to when I retire, I could finally look back and say, in my 30 years, that I actually moved the needle in the right direction. But we can't do it alone. We can't do it individually. We need to come together if we're going to really make this impact for change.
That sounds like a call to action to me. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Andy?
All right, so I was taking on the approach of the diving. So, you know, the American judge, the Russian judge, that type of thing. So I agree as far as the effort, the heart of the credit unions, an A. If we look at the actual data and the numbers, we're talking a C. And if controversially, I don't know, maybe I won't be invited back either. I'm going to go a D to an F when it comes to understanding true needs and barriers. Because, you know, we started working on the Racial Economic Equity Incubator with Urban Strategies, Feline, Native Women Lead. And we teach to the test and we teach to the systems. But if there are folks that have been marginalized by the system and left out, check systems is a barrier. So many people didn't know how to use a debit card, and now they can't get access to a credit union. The credit profile of Black and Brown individuals is starkly different. It's not all credit cards. It's medical bills, it's payday loans, it's collection accounts, it's all of these things. So if we're teaching people how to pay credit, but they're working 3 jobs and not getting paid every 2 weeks, and we tell them pay your bills on time, how are they paying their bills on time? So we've got to teach to the needs and not teach to the test. So that's where I would a yes and to all of those things. And controversially, it's, you know, and Balance and Green Path both work in this space where we're talking to people in crisis constantly. And it's just a tough situation where it's like, how could we have helped people avoid this? I mean, when we were talking about through the pandemic, why things were improved, we had stimulus funds. People could put food on the table. They could pay down debt. I mean, debt went right off a cliff. There were so many people that paid off their debt management and their debt management plans. We were so celebrating hand over fist on this situation. And now our calls are up 70% because the debt went right back up once all the care and help came back from that. And so, you know, if we look at it and we kind of break it down into these various categories, that would be my suggestion. I don't often get too, well, I guess I do get worked up and a little bit passionate about it, but I'm like, we've got to do something. We've got to help people. The kitchen table issues, the things that they're talking about, that's what we've got to address and talk to. So I'll defer to my other esteemed panelists here as well.
Andy, I hear that passion and we love it. That AACUC will always make room for that passion and the truth, right? So do not excommunicate yourself out of the conversation. Yes, absolutely. Let's get real. So Angel, what's your grade?
Well, I didn't assign a grade. I'm taking a different approach because I think that the grade may depend on where the credit union, that particular credit union is. I think that there are many credit unions who are successfully engaging their members and community on consumer financial education, and some are innovating with technology, curriculum, in-person education, and other outreach that's helping to build financial capability. On the other hand, there are credit unions who aren't able to prioritize financial education because they don't have the bandwidth or resources to do so. And I think that's where the NCUA's financial literacy and outreach program can help. We develop free, unbiased, trustworthy resources that credit unions and other financial educators can use to support and build their financial literacy efforts. So whether you're looking for curriculum, activities, infographics, one-page explainers that can be made into posters or shared on social media, or interactive learning tools, we have you covered with educational content that helps demystify often confusing and complex matters of consumer finance. These resources and much more can be found on mycreditunion.gov, NCUA's consumer education website. For instance, we have a series of short consumer tip videos that address financial topics, trends, frequent money management misconceptions. And credit unions can embed these videos into their outreach materials and link them to their websites. Currently, we have videos, and these are very short. They're like 2-minute videos on obtaining free credit reports, helping seniors protect their money and avoid elder financial abuse, mortgage interest rates and how they can affect a prospective home buyer's budget, crypto assets, which is a big topic, ABLE accounts. And just last week, we posted a new video on appraisal bias. We also have credit unions can check out our webinars that we offer. They provide great information to help people, the consumers, but also credit unions better serve their members. Our next webinar is in recognition of Older Americans Month. We'll host a webinar with the AARP and the CFPB. It's titled Reframe the Shame, a conversation about financial crimes against older adults. And we're also launching a newsletter. Our first, the first publication is focused on how credit unions can build and sustain a financial literacy program. And it includes 2 new money basic guides, one on savings and checking accounts. The other is on savings and budgeting. And so hopefully this will come out sometime before the end of April. So we just want you all to know that NCUA is here to support all of you in your financial literacy endeavors. And so if I can be of assistance or my team, you can reach us at consumereducation@ncua.gov.
I love that, Angel. Thank you. And I just put the URL to the website that you were talking about with all of the resources. Y'all check those out. I mean, we are getting saturated with great information today. Michelle, please tell us what's your grade that you'd like to offer.
I'll just start with, this is my grade. This is not the National Credit Union Foundation's grade. This is no one else's grade. This is my grade. And yes, of course, if I may be just honest, A for effort, but could we be doing more? Credit unions already know that. I think oftentimes the question is, how do we rank compared to banks? How are they doing this? I'll tell you from experience, I've been on both sides. They're doing the same things. Where we can make the differences and where it's not being met is, are we taking the initiative to do even the things that are low hanging fruit? I have heard too many times, we don't have this in the language that you're looking for. We don't have, an educator in that language you're looking for. If your membership, just go into your grocery store. If your membership, that's your membership. If your membership looks anything like something that you're not providing, let's start doing that. I think we know this, and we know costs can be a barrier, but let's do more. And on top of that, I think just even in a general session yesterday, our lecturer Toju Metarua, he talked about cryptocurrency and he talked about blockchain. These are things that, quite honestly, the credit union system seems to keep avoiding. While a very select few are involved in that, and I know there are policies and things to consider, we know that our membership or people in around us are considering this for financial alternatives. It may not be your buy here, pay here. These are people trying to invest. They're no longer trying to just save money. They're trying to get ahead. And so if we ignore these very obvious conversations that need to be had, or even just in that same lecture alone, a raise of hands, how many people think that they were ready to have these conversations with their members? Not one hand. After the lecture, how does that look? We're maybe starting to have these conversations. We may can try, but are we educating ourselves enough? So I'll turn the table back, right, on the financial educators to say, learn more, do more, but also as a whole, not only just for your credit union, but for the industry. We know we can do more. Now let's tap into that, dig a little bit deeper and see what we can be doing to execute. So the full grade, I would say, would be a D for do more. And I know you can.
Love that. The mic drop. D for do more. Y'all, the grades are in, right? The call to action is clear. You have heard from a passionate group of strategists within the credit union community, within the credit union industry, and at large. The way that they continue to elevate the voices and elevate their voices and their passion and show us that vulnerability. We will always be we'll always benefit from their knowledge and the knowledge that they put out into the world. So thank you all so much for joining us for this discussion. You've made my job very easy. And I know that there have been many gems dropped. I hope you all are writing notes. We want to stay connected with you. And I want to thank AACUC for allowing me to moderate this beautiful, beautiful panel. My beyond my wildest dreams, right? Financial Literacy Month, and to be able to have this intimate discussion with you all and share the great efforts that you are doing, it means so much. So SB, I'd love to hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you again to our panelists. Such an incredible conversation, and I feel right now that a lot of what I learned at the conference this last week at CU Fin Health is definitely like, yes, we need to do more. So thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, you know us, we end on time. We maybe didn't start on time because of technical difficulties, but that's aside the point. We started and we're going to end on time. But before that, again, a huge thank you to our esteemed panelists, to Kelly for being a fabulous moderator. We really did value all those insights and wisdoms and the shared pieces of nuggets. I hope everybody took a lot of notes. If not, keep an eye out. We will have this recording available later this month. So there's time to rewatch it and to share it, because this is all stuff that we definitely need to dive in deeper, to talk about it, to get uncomfortable, like Enrique said. And thank you to our AACUC Board of Directors, our chapter officers, and the amazing staff for all of your support. With that, I do want to give you the little plug-in for the next CTC conversation that will be next month on May 19th. So save the date for that. It'll be again from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that, I give you time back. So thank you again so much for joining us. Have a wonderful, fabulous weekend. And for board and staff, I invite you to please stay on along with our panelists. Thank you all.